Safe to Serve family, first-time viewers, welcome to this midday power surge, your spiritual oasis on this pilgrim journey. I'm your host, Andrew Henriquez. The true fast of Isaiah 58, verse 6 through verse 14 continues. I'm talking about the Great Relief Program there in Jamaica for those who are suffering. The feeding, clothing, sheltering, and evangelizing of the people there continues. This midday power surge is going to be launched, and afterward, I'm going to post a second video. Please stay tuned for that. More updates are going to be posted as it relates to our work there in Jamaica, even though we're here, but we are working with teams there. The shipping of items are actually being sorted. That work has already begun. So, Jamaica, stay tuned. Now, friends, I have a lot to cover today, but I want to begin with a particular current event which is addressing container homes are now being secured to be shipped for Jamaicans, those who have been severely affected by Hurricane Melissa. With that in mind, I want to say this. It's time to clarify, dispel a misconception that people have in general as it relates to the duties, the work of governments to their citizens before, during, and after a significant calamity. Let's take Hurricane Melissa as the prime example. You have some individuals, even Jamaicans, who believe that it is the principal duty of the Jamaican government to now house them, rebuild their homes. Beloved, that is a misconception. It was not the government's duties to give you a home in the first place, to give your mother, father, you, then your children. That's not the work of the government, to give you a home. Also, after a calamity, it is not the chief duty of the government to give you a house, to rebuild your house. It's not. If the government of Jamaica does that, that's a bonus. That's not their duty. It's a bonus. And if you notice, in a few countries where the government gives the people homes, houses, in those countries, the people are actually slaves. Think about it. Do you want to be a slave? Do you want to be a pauper? Especially in these last days when the mark of the beast is about to be enforced? Let me remind you of chapter 47 of Genesis, verse 15 through verse 22. Go read that. The people sold their bodies, they gave their lands, they became government paupers, they became slaves. And Revelation 18, verse 13 tells us the end goal is slavery for mankind. I'm going to roll a few clips of Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness there in Jamaica as he announced container homes for Jamaicans. Then I'm going to sprinkle a few commentary, and then in the second video, I will say more. Watch this.
We have examined pre-built containerized modular solution, and we have settled in our minds that this is appropriate for the Jamaican situation that we now have. There are different types, different versions, and so I've met with the NHD, and the NHD has provided us with a solution that they are presently working on. At a later stage, we'll go into more details, but the plan is for, in the initial phase, for the NHD to purchase 5,000 container homes, and some of them will be for sale with a program with the NHD. You will be able to purchase. Some of them will be used to build housing schemes, which you can purchase, and a portion of them will be made available through social housing. The government itself will also be purchasing some of these containerized housing solutions, which will be made available through the social housing modality.
Okay. Now, I'm not going to repeat what he just said. You all heard the different aspects of this solution in this current state of emergency. So when I caught wind of what he said about a social program for housing, I went to search for it. Jamaica's main social housing program is the new social housing program designed to provide affordable, quality housing for the poor and disadvantaged. It operates through several modalities, including direct indigent housing and upgrades to tenement yards. Now watch carefully. It says this: eligibility often involves a recommendation from a member of parliament and an assessment of living conditions. Now wait a minute. So what if a family is not on good terms with the MP? You would not be recommended. I'm going somewhere with this. It says, the government is also expanding the program to include, etc., etc. Now skip on down. It says indigent housing. This addresses the housing needs of the most vulnerable citizens who have no income or very low income. So this is to dispel this notion that it is principally the government's duties to now rebuild your house and give you a house. No such thing. If it does it, it's a bonus. In other words, the work of rebuilding is chiefly dependent upon humanitarian efforts, meaning I help my brother. If I'm the one that is destitute, my brother helps me. Isn't that one of the main ways people in the first place secure their house? Think about it. Think about it. You worked, got a paycheck, built your home, bought your home, or if you rented, all right? Or you received someone bequeathed you a property, willed a property. Different ways, humanitarian work. And that's why today I want to emphasize the 5 keys of survival, especially key number 5, assisting those who are less fortunate. And that's why Safe to Serve, local, here in Georgia, there in Florida, and Safe to Serve International. Praise God for all of you. We have rallied to this cause, efforts to assist those who are less fortunate. We could not have done, and we could not be doing what we're now launching to do without your assistance. Watch carefully here, friends. Here is where I'm going to give caution. In the same document, it says, this social contract, it means beneficiaries are required to sign a social contract, of course, with the government. Think about that. So to get the housing, to get the house, you must sign something. Now, what are the policies in that contract? I don't know. It could not be barbaric now, but later on it may become so. So let me caution you. Those who are at the bottom of the barrel, colloquially speaking, you do what God tells you to do. But for us as God's people, let's assist each other. Yes? Because remember Proverbs 22 and verse 7. It says that the borrower is servant to the lender, and serve means to worship. Just imagine if this crisis had launched us into the mark of the beast. And now you want a house, a roof over your head. And here comes not only particular criteria, but this particular criterion that you must receive the mark of the beast in order to have your roof replaced, the siding of your home replaced. You get the point. A container home for you to live in a container home scheme. You know a scheme? Several homes that are close side by side. That's not biblical. But those who are destitute may have to do what they have to do in the interim. But we as Bible Christians, we know as Christians, that is not the biblical, that is not the end time solution. Go read Adventist homepage 141. What is that? Amos, Isaiah chapter 5. Woe unto them that build a house to house, side by side, house, scheme, tenement dwelling. Go read Ministry of Healing. That chapter, help for unemployed and homeless. It's right there. Isaiah, verse 8 of Isaiah chapter 5. Woe unto them that join house to house, that lay field to field. Yeah. No, my friends. So we know we're living in a crisis. Do you know what pained my heart? As we traversed St. Elizabeth for the past 2 weeks, every day, St. James, Trelawney, where am I? Westmoreland, I'm missing one. Didn't I call St. Elizabeth? St. Elizabeth, I got it. St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, that's it. Hanover, St. James, and then Trelawney. You all see me going along the map of Jamaica? Yes. And we saw people who lived in the country and lost every temporal thing. Not lost everything. They're alive. They lost every temporal thing and they're in the country. And we said to each other, how many folks would actually cut their wrist, cut the vein, the artery there, and just give up on life, give up on God? They're already in the right location and lost every temporal thing. What am I saying? Let us implement that fifth key of survival. I have more to say. Let me continue here. Watch carefully. Dr. Andrew Holness, Prime Minister, go ahead.
So effectively, we have to do a rapid deployment of housing solutions. And the easiest way to do this is to use the containerized solutions. They do take some time to arrive in Jamaica. There's just certainly not the quantity to make an impact. So we have met and discussed it. We have taken the policy decision that these can...
Did you all catch that? The amount that are coming in are not enough, sufficient to make an impact because so many people have lost so... My friends, the videos you see, the pictures do not tell the complete story. It's worse when you see it in person. I don't know. Do you know how many folks have knocked on our doors? Pastor Enriquez, Safe to Serve. Possibly after the smoke settles, I'll give you a true number. And some of you are going to be shocked about that number. How many folks? How many people? Watch carefully. So it goes back to humanitarian work.
Be used, and so the process of acquiring them through the procurement process, they have been given the approval to move ahead with that. So that should start in short order. You know, we are not going to get them here for Christmas. I just have to be frank with everybody. But we should start to see some coming in by late January. And those that come in initially, we are going to be looking at the worst cases assessed to make them available.
Beloved, I want to caution you. We are not called to do the work of the Salvation Army, NGOs. That's their work. Red Cross, their work. However, we have a work to do in assisting those who are less fortunate around us. That's our work. So make sure we are balanced in our thinking, planning, and our execution.
For Christmas and for the initial stages, we're going to have to try to do the shelter repair kits, the heavy-duty tarpaulins, and those kinds of solutions, in addition to the rebuilding, the actual putting on roofs and so forth, as much of that as we can in the coming weeks leading up to Christmas. But the containerized solution does take some time. The shipping is between 30 to 90 days, just that alone. Then there is some procurement and other administrative and bureaucratic things that might take up the time. So we're really trying to...
Friends, I'm going to say this to you. I recalled this last trip to Jamaica. And some of you heard the testimonies we shared this past Sabbath during the Sabbath school time period. My cousin was our transport or driver, just traversing the whole situation there. And he said this to me and others. He said, some of the people that are receiving the actual lumber and zinc materials, some of them are refusing materials now from the Good Samaritans who come to their aid. Why? They are waiting to see what the government of Jamaica is going to do for them. And in their minds, if they take our and other people's materials, then they won't get what the government is going to give them. So in their minds, they believe the help, the assistance, the materials from the government is going to be more than what we and others would offer. I said, interesting. What a sad way of thinking. You are receiving help now and you refuse it because you're waiting on who? And here you have the Prime Minister is telling you that we won't be able to assist every person. As a matter of fact, again, it's not their job to do that. If they do it, it's simply a bonus. That's it. That's it. And that's why in many other countries, the calamities that they encountered, people began to rebuild on their own. No, that is one reason why so many countries have begun to send in supplies, materials. Yes. Why? Because they know that it's going to take a humanitarian effort to assist those who are less fortunate. With that in mind, I'm going to say this before I go any further. I'm going to segue in the next 2 to 3 minutes and get to the last part of this lesson here. But let me say this. Any one of you SDAs who have heard other SDA ministers and people, elders, evangelists, even those who claim to be present truth, trying to negate and actually vilify what we're doing here locally and in Jamaica, and by intimating and also saying that we should not be helping non-SDAs because God sent the judgment of Hurricane Melissa, because these people are wicked, because they want obeah, sorcery, to be legal in Jamaica, the LGBT, etc. I want to ask you a question. Which country right now, name them, that have not legalized LGBT? Same-sex union. Talk to me. Talk to me. Pause right there. That's a different argument for now. Pause right there. Those who say we shouldn't help non-SDAs, do you know I have non-SDA family members? How many of you SDAs have non-SDA relatives? And those who made those statements also have non-SDA relatives. The thinking and the statements. If you have heard that, go back and tell them, get thee behind me, Satan. Those men are devilish. Flee from their camps. I heard someone say, Hurricane Melissa was more than a calamity. Hurricane Melissa was a mirror. You know, glass, mirror? It was a mirror. And I believe it. because crisis reveals character. Christ's object lessons. Yes, it reveals character. Hurricane Melissa was a mirror. Beloved, take a writing instrument. Those of you who are live in the comment section, from this point, I'm going to put this point to rest. After this, I want you all to write down John chapter 4. In John chapter 4, to whom did Christ minister spiritually and physically? It was a woman of Samaria. Was she a Jew? No, she was not. Was she a true worshiper of the God of heaven? No. Christ said that they were worshiping in the mountains, idols, in the mountains, idolatry. And Christ ministered to her. Number 2, do you know that one of the 10 lepers that Christ literally healed and afterward said, go, you have been made whole, spiritually healed. Do you know he was not a Jew? The one who came back, one of 10, and thanked God, he was a Samaritan. Watch carefully. The Desire of Ages, page 488. Paragraph number 6. It says, the Savior's own visit to Samaria, and later, the commendation of the Good Samaritan, and the grateful joy of that leper, a Samaritan, who alone of the 10 returned to give thanks to Christ, were full of significance to his disciples. Who was he? A Samaritan. Thirdly, write down Luke 10. In Luke 10, this is the account of the Good Samaritan. I want to read something to you right here. On page 503, and after this, I'll put this to rest. 503. You think I don't hear things? Watch carefully what this says. A certain Samaritan in his journey came where the sufferer was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him. Listen now. He did not question whether the stranger was a Jew or a Gentile. If a Jew, the Samaritan well knew that, were the condition reversed, the man would spit in his face and pass him by with contempt. Mercy. And Christ commended that Good Samaritan. But again, let's be balanced, because in the 6th chapter of Galatians, verse 10 says, do good to all men while there is opportunity, but especially those who are of the household of faith. I gave you all this testimony, and it must be repeated. My heart broke when a family called me rather, and said, there is a person who follows your ministry, gave me your number, and I was hoping if your agency could help us. And I knew those words implied the person who called and left that message was not SDA. Agency? We don't have an agency here. And then the husband said, we are not SDA. We are not SDA. But could you please assist us? Mercy. No, you know what I did. I returned the phone call. And assistance was rendered after a conversation and a proper assessment was done. That's our work. And what we do unto others will be rendered, meted unto us. Matthew 7, verse 1, verse 2, and verse 12. I'll put that to rest right now. Beloved, let's get to this, because this is startling. Something that's trending has taken hold of America right now. Take a look at this, my friends. Politicians have said to troops, disobey President Trump's unlawful orders. And we have President Trump actually saying, those lawmakers who have said that are seditionists, which I'll come to right now. You might ask, why should I cover that? Do you know why? I'm going to prove to you today that the media and Americans have already labeled Seventh-day Adventist seditionists. Watch this. Let's take a look at this right here.
We have examined.
All right.
The use.
It says, Democrats, lawmakers, these are members of Congress, are now actively encouraging troops to disobey their commanders. Clip 1.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
And the intelligence community.
Who take risks each day.
Keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
And intelligence community professionals.
Against American citizens.
like us. You all swore an oath.
To protect and defend this Constitution.
And right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
But from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
you must refuse illegal orders.
My friends, the table is now being set. And later on in this lesson, I'm going to prove to you, whenever this came as a controversy in America, where a sect, a group, is telling the military to disobey orders, a civil war broke out. Stay tuned for that. Number 2, why should you continue watching this lesson right now? Why? Because if you are a commandment-keeping person, if you are a seventh-day Sabbath-keeping person, SDA, safe to serve, understand this. We very, very soon will have to disobey an unlawful, unbiblical order from the government. And we are going to be called seditionists. That is why you must pay attention today. Clip 2.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law.
Or our Constitution.
We know this is hard.
And that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
The Army.
Our Navy,
The Air Force.
Your vigilance is critical.
and know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
The American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws.
our Constitution,
And who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
don't give up.
don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
Okay? So now once that was posted, let us now see and hear what President Trump said in response. He said, Trump says, the Democrat lawmakers who told the military to defy illegal orders committed sedition at the highest level, quote unquote. Don't forget that word, sedition. President Trump said the Democrats who did that should be in jail right now. Number 2, he also added, quote, that these Democrat lawmakers have not only committed sedition, but that they should be put to death. That's what he said. Watch this.
The White House dialing back President Trump's own words today. The president calling several Democrats in Congress, most of them veterans, traitors in a post, and then in another post saying this is punishable by death after they put out a video telling service members they can refuse, quote, illegal orders. The White House was asked, in this environment, what is the president suggesting? Here's Rachel Scott.
Tonight, President Trump criticized by members of both parties after calling 6 Democratic members of Congress, quote, traitors, and accusing them of seditious behavior punishable by death.
Representative,
It came in response to video released by the lawmakers, all of whom served in the military or in U.S. intelligence.
I was a captain in the
My friends, Here is clip 2. Watch.
The lawmakers did not specify which orders they were talking about, but the president enraged, posting a flurry of messages on social media saying they should be arrested and put on trial. Their words cannot be allowed to stand, adding, an example must be set. The president then writing, seditious behavior punishable by death. And he reposted a message from another account that said, hang them. George Washington would.
Hang them. Is there coming a time? That's why I'm covering this. For God's commandment-keeping people, are we going to be labeled seditionists? We're now seeing the stage is being set. If you go against the law of the land, you should be put to death. That is a step to fulfill Revelation 13, verse 15 through 17. I'm going to confirm that shortly. And if you encourage others to do likewise, you must be put to death. Watch this.
Democrats accusing the president of inciting violence.
This puts all of our lives in jeopardy, right? What are we all doing right now? Democrats in the Congress are on the phone with their chiefs of staff, beefing up our security for this weekend and next week, because the president has a lot of unhinged supporters out there.
Republicans clearly uncomfortable.
The words that the president chose are not the ones that I would use, okay? Obviously, I don't think that these are crimes punishable by death or any of that, okay?
Republican Senator Rand Paul was blunt.
That kind of rhetoric isn't good. It stirs up people among us who may not be stable, who may think, well, traitors, what do we do with traitors? It's a death penalty. Maybe I'll just take matters into my own hands, which is not something we should be encouraging.
Beloved, I'm not here to address the nitty-gritty. I'm giving you a bird's eye view. If you go against the orders of the land, you are going to be put to death. That's the point I'm driving home. You watch this, my friends. Here's Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck is going to tell you that what is now trending, controversial, as we just covered, it is history being repeated, and that a civil war is on foot. A what war? Watch carefully. And remember, the end goal is that civil war. And then comes the mark of the beast. Wake up, my friends. I know somebody will now say, well, Pastor, should troops disobey orders? I'm not getting into that. I'm not a news anchor. I'm showing you end-time prophecy. Here is Glenn Beck telling you, this is history being repeated. And if that's the case, then we know prophecy from Scripture is also being repeated. Watch this. Glenn Beck.
Look at history, because history has a merciless way of identifying patterns long before politicians will admit to them. In the entire American experiment, there are only a handful of moments anything like this has occurred. And every single one of those was a moment that was a prelude to national fracture. 1860 to 1861, it was the secession winter. Southern leaders encouraged officers at the federal level and forts to abandon the Union and pledge loyalty to the states. Not normal politics. This was the beginning of the rupture, and then came Fort Sumter.
Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter was the place where the first shot was fired. And then came the Civil War. So what you're seeing now, Glenn Beck is telling you, that's America's history being repeated. Now, let me talk to you SDAs. Have you ever read Volume 1? In Testament for the Church, Volume 1, inspiration says that God's hand was in that Civil War to punish the South for slavery and to punish the North for tolerating it. All right. And what led to that? That fracturing, that Civil War? Come on, friends. The South telling federal soldiers, disobey orders. Yeah. We're here once in American history, and we're now seeing a repetition. But what are the majority of the people now doing while this is happening? They're focused on secular, frivolous things, on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. Drunk with worldliness. Come on, friends. Come on. Wake up. Next.
1870, Reconstruction. Some states rejected federal authority outright. Sheriffs, militias, even sometimes judges refused federal directives. But Congress itself, they never told the Army to ignore the president.
Never.
In Vietnam, members of Congress denounced the war, denounced Nixon, denounced Johnson. But no one ever told active duty troops disobey the commander-in-chief. It wasn't done. Because every generation up until this one understood something very basic. You cannot politicize the chain of command without breaking the republic. And once the military begins to decide on its own which orders are legitimate, which ones, which president they prefer, you no longer have civilian control. You no longer have a republic. You have factions inside an armed institution. And that is exactly how nations collapse. And every single one of those sitting representatives know it. Turkey, Argentina, Spain, Egypt, every single example, the pattern is always the same. Political parties begin encouraging the military to resist the other side, and the center completely collapses.
Mercy. Beloved, Glenn Beck just did what I would do if I was preaching Luke 21. He went from the Civil War in 1860s and walked it down. In 1860s, one party said, disobey the other party. Military do not follow. Then came the Civil War. He went to the other wars. While Americans were against those wars, Congress lawmakers never said what is now being said. Until now, history is being repeated. And that's why we should never get into nitty-gritty and minutia. Well, this one said that. None of it. Look at the history, the pattern. Next. A civil war is coming, my friends. All right.
And this is the part where you need to hear me clearly. What we saw here this week with this is not the Bubba effect, where ordinary citizens lose trust in authority or rally behind the local guy. No. This is something far more seditious and serious. This is the institutional Bubba effect, where leaders inside the government, with their own plan, the political class, begin urging Bubba in the military to take sides in domestic political disputes. That is a very, very bright line. The great unbroken line in American history, unbroken in our history. That line kept us from becoming every other failed republic. And now these people have stepped over it.
Beloved, I'm going to say this. In the book Education, page 228, Glenn Beck is telling you the seeds are being sown for a civil war. Glenn Beck is not my preacher, is not my inspiration. He's not my quintessential spokesperson. He's not. However, in the book Education, I find such. And on page 228, we're told, a civil war is coming in the last days. How will you know? The first sentence says, at the same time, anarchy is seeking to sweep away all law. Not only divine law, but human law. Yes, we're here. Continue. Beloved, today is Tuesday, November 25. And I want to say this, based on inspiration, because I'm going here now with Seditionists. I'm going here now. Bible time now. Bible time now. It's midday power surge. Hear me carefully now, friends. We are told we must spend a thoughtful hour each day contemplating upon the closing scenes of Christ's earthly ministry. Here's why. What transpired then is going to be repeated. Beloved, the closing scene of Christ's earthly ministry was when he was crucified on Calvary's cross. He died. That's the end. And just before he died, he was captured. What was one chief theme when Christ was captured, look at your screen right here. They labeled Jesus a seditionist, while Barabbas was not seditionist. Luke 23, verse 18 through 25. Let me be clear here. So if we had CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, if we had YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok back then, what would be trending on Rumble back then? Sedition. What was trending there? Sedition and seditionists. In Luke 23, verse 18, it's clear. Barabbas was called that seditionist, a murderer. He was in prison. But the people said, give us the seditionists. We want you to crucify Jesus. Please note that. That's why I'm talking about this today. Next, in that same chapter, Luke 23, verse 1 through verse 4, what did they call Jesus? All right. They called Christ a seditionist. That's the first witness. We will be called seditionists. Over here, preacher. Camera on me, please. Let me talk to them face to face, eye to eye. And later on, I'm going to prove to you the media and people have already begun to call Seventh-day Adventist seditionists. Okay, second witness, Acts 24, verse 5, verse 6. What did they call Paul? It's right there. They called him a seditionist. He's going against the laws of Caesar, the laws of the land. And Paul and Christ are guilty of inspiring, persuading others to do likewise. Therefore, we must hang Paul. We must hang Christ. Suspend him on a cross. We must crucify them. Two witnesses. Let's continue here, my friends. In the book of Ezra. As in the new, so in the old. In the book of Ezra, chapter 4. Listen to me now. Not only Christ as a person was called a seditionist. Not only Paul as one individual was called a seditionist. In chapter 4 of Ezra, a whole group, a whole nation of believers were called seditionists. In the Old Testament, a whole group. In the New, individuals. What's coming in the last days? Because Romans chapter, what's that? Romans chapter 15, verse 4, all these things that were written aforetime were written for our learning. That's it. Chapter 4 of Ezra. Watch carefully here, my friends. Please read this. They called the Jewish nation a place that was a bad city, a rebellious city. Mercy. Watch carefully. They will not give tribute. Stop right there. They won't give what? And what did Christ say in Mark 12? Write it down. Verse 13 through verse 17. Christ says, don't give tribute to Caesar, that belongs to God. Don't render obedience to Caesar, that belongs to Christ, to God. So if Caesar enacts a law, and that law is contrary to Bible and spirit of prophecy, the law and testimony do not obey. That's clear. And Romans, Paul again, and Romans 13, verse 1 through verse 10 confirms that. Hold on. Romans 13 specifically, verse 6 and verse 7. Don't give tribute to Caesar. Don't render obedience to Caesar. If that law goes against God's law, it doesn't matter if Caesar bears the sword. If the state will persecute you. We must say like Peter in Acts 5 verse 29, we must obey God rather than men. Come back here, my friends. Chapter 4 of Ezra. Quickly. The third paragraph on the screen says, that whole nation was a group of seditionists. And then the men said to the king, take away their liberties. Don't allow them to rebuild their city. So those who are labeled seditionists in the last days, they won't have any constitutional rights, no liberties, religious nor civil. Last paragraph on the screen. They called God's people insurrectionists against the king, against the state. That's Bible, my friends. That's Bible. Continue here. I'm going to prove it to you now. The media and the world and Americans, pardon me, the media, get it right, and Americans have already labeled Sabbath keepers seditionists. They are trying to destroy America because they refuse to keep Sunday. You know what? I would do something here. I won't read these two paragraphs. I won't. Let me test you. You just heard what I said, right? If you doubt what I said, read these two paragraphs. That's it. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. The Washington Post, a premier media outlet in America, gave this report. In 1888, when a Sunday law was coming in America, and the context was that there was a civil war also brewing in America in the same 1800s, 1880s. Watch carefully. And they said America was losing that civil war. It's right there. America was losing the civil war. Do you know why? Because the people weren't Christian enough. Mercy. And then they said, hold on. These Seventh-day Adventists who will not give up the 7-day Sabbath and accept Sunday worship like the rest of us, they are guilty of destroying America. What do you call that? Sedition. Insurrection. That's it right there. Prove me wrong. Last days we're living in, my friends. Let me come to this now as I bring this to a close. It says Elijah was declared to be a troubler of Israel. Jeremiah was called and labeled a traitor. Paul, a seditionist, a polluter of the temple. Third sentence. From that day to this day, November 25, 2025, those who would be loyal to truth have been denounced as seditious. Case closed. Case closed, my friends. That's the book, The Great Controversy, page 458. That's it. That's why I covered this today. Heretical will be labeled. Schismatic we shall be labeled. This spirit will increase more and more. Then you can read this, my friends. The Bible does tell us when the laws of the state conflict the law of God, if you disobey the law of the state, get ready to brave reproach. SDAs, get ready to brave punishment as an evildoer. Continue. Do you remember these three Hebrews? I'm going to read this one. In the midst of this imposing display stand the three youthful Hebrews, steadily persisting in their refusal to obey the king's decree. They had been obedient to the laws of America. Pardon me. The laws of Jamaica. Pardon me. The laws of Babylon, so far as these did not conflict with the claims of God. But they would not be swayed a hair's breadth from the duty they owed to their Creator. The laws of nations should be respected. You know what? Everybody, make sure if you're going to quote me, you quote me correctly. The laws of America, the laws of Jamaica should be respected. Amen. When they do not conflict with the laws of God. But when there is a collision, mercy, between them, every true disciple of Christ will say, as did Peter, we ought to obey God rather than men. Now, beloved, this quote I'm not going to evade. I'm not going to simply reference. I'm going to read it. Do you know why? Because this quote applies to the military. I have come across several SDA parents who encourage their young men and young women, SDAs, to join the military and to bear arms in a secular government military, even America. Watch this. I saw it's our duty in every case to obey the laws of our land unless they conflict with the higher law which God spoke with an audible voice from Sinai, and where he wrote them with his own finger. My friends, which of those 10 commandments is going to be the last conflict in the last days? It's the fourth. Do you see it now? When Sunday is enforced of the law of the land. Those who refuse Sunday law and hold fast to God's seventh-day Sabbath, you will be disobeying a lawful order from America. But based on God's word, it is unlawful. Based on the U.S. Constitution, First Amendment, 14th Amendment, Article 6, it is unlawful. It is illegal. And based on the Bible, from cover to cover, it is unbiblical. We will be called seditionists. Do you see it now? Continue. It says, I was shown that God's people, who are his peculiar treasure, cannot engage in this perplexing war, for it is opposed to every principle of their faith. In the army, in the U.S. Army, they cannot obey the truth and at the same time obey the requirements of their officers. Mercy. There would be a continual violation of conscience. But if the requirements of the rulers are such as conflict with the laws of God, the only question to be settled is, shall we obey God or man? If we are called to do and perform duties, non-combatant, that's it, in the military, secular military, none of it. As a matter of fact, there has been a famous account, not story, I don't like story, account of a man called Desmond Doss, D-O-S-S. You get the point, right? Yes, sir. My friends, I leave it there. 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 We have men over us for rulers. The laws must govern the people. Some laws are good, others are bad, and they're getting worse. But listen, blue words, when the laws of men conflict with God's word and law, we are to obey the latter, whatever the consequences may be. The law of our land requiring us to deliver a slave to his master, Seventh-day Adventists are not to obey, and we must abide the consequences of violating this law. I wonder why? Read the rest for yourselves. I wonder why? Read the rest for yourselves. This was Midday Power Surge. Stay tuned for a second video that will be posted shortly about our true fast that continues with the work there in Jamaica. What have you learned today from Midday Power Surge? Did you learn anything? Were you reminded of anything today? If so, put that in the comment section. If you were blessed, you know what to do. Share it with others. we can all be prepared by implementing those 5 keys of survival. Maranatha, let's be found getting ready, getting others ready before it's too late.